Good morning. Bear Independent Brief, 19SEP25, and I need a haircut and a beard trim. We're going to do three things this morning. We have a written brief, we have extra intel sent in by y'all to intel@bearindependent.com, and I'm also going to give you a quick debrief on a 5-hour Zoom call that I participated in yesterday for a government agency from a procurement standpoint. For what? Oh, the show's brought to you by RefugeMedical.com. Okay. So, point one, debrief of this procurement solicitation call. And this was with DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And you can find most of this on sam.gov, at least the prospectus and the outline. And I'll just tell you my takeaways from this call. Number one, there will be no telemedicine in the next conflict. The bandwidth will be contested, diminished, or non-existent. Telemedicine's a big deal. If you don't know what that is, look into it. Number two, there will be no golden hour, the first 60 minutes of moving the casualty from the point of injury to definitive care, because the airspace will be contested. Number three, the goal will be to treat casualties as close to the front lines as possible and to recycle them back to the front lines to maintain combat power. Number four, there will not be enough blood products. Number five, there will not be enough surgeons. Number six, there will not be enough medics. Number seven, they are very specifically concerned about a 3-year timeline. Number eight, they are very specifically focused on Southeast Asia. Number 9, LSCO, large-scale combat operations, is their focus. Think World War II. Number 10, and this is a quote from a major that was on the call. God forbid this would be a whole-of-country effort, meaning us, if this comes to pass in approximately 3 years. God forbid this would be a whole-of-country effort. And number 11, human and machine teaming is inevitable in the defense space. They are. Now, granted, this is DARPA that we're talking about, but they are 100% on board of first integrating machines with humans and then foreshadowing integrating machines into humans from a defense standpoint. My opinion and analysis. If you want me to shoot a longer video on that, let me know in the comments and I'll consider it. Brief for today. Another troubling sign has emerged as consumer sentiment among the country's highest earners takes a nosedive. For those earning $100,000 or more, consumer sentiment has fallen about 10 points over the past month, according to Morning Consult's index. This development matters more than most people realize because the top 10% of earners accounted for nearly half of all spending in the 3 months that ended in August, according to Moody's Analytics. The top 1% of earners, last time I checked in the United States of America, are people who earn $400,000 per year or more. So there's a fair number of those people. Now, obviously, there's a fair number more that don't. However, it's not, when we think about the top 1% in this country, it's not cajillionaires, okay? Top 1% is 400K or more. As chief economist Mark Zandi put it, quote, the U.S. economy is being largely powered by the well-to-do. As long as they keep spending, the economy should avoid recession. But if they turn more cautious, for whatever reason, like large-scale combat operations in the next 3 years, the economy has a big problem, end quote. if you're one of the few that has a couple of bucks burning a hole in your pocket and you need to invest it into something, I would invest it into your preparedness. Or, and I hate to say it, military-industrial complex, but man, it looks like defense spending and defense companies are going to probably do well in the next half a decade. What's driving this pessimism among high earners is a combination of labor market weakness and what economists call an ongoing white-collar recession. John Lear, Morning Consult's chief economist, warns that, quote, the high-income consumer is more vulnerable than they've been really since coming out of the pandemic, end quote. August jobs report showed a labor market that's largely slowing down, creating job anxiety that's been building all year. Meanwhile, trade disruptions are incoming. Major U.S. container ports handled 2.36 million 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, in July, a 20.1% jump from June as retailers scrambled to bring in merchandise ahead of tariffs set to take effect in August. But as predicted in previous briefs, this surge was temporary. Import cargo volume is expected to decline steadily through the end of the year, with December traffic projected at 1.7 TEUs, representing 1.7 million TEUs, representing a 20.1% slide and the slowest month since March 2023. So the jump in July has now been reduced back to baseline, 20.1% up, 20.1% down. The National Retail Federation's Jonathan Gold explains the broader implications. Quote, these tariffs and disruptions to the supply chain are adding costs that will ultimately lead to higher prices for American consumers, end quote, which is great because, why not pay more with a dollar that has lower value? Retailers have been stocking up for as much as they can ahead of tariff increases, but the uncertainty is making it nearly impossible to make long-term business plans. Unless you manufacture things in the United States of America. Like, say it with me, kids, refugemedical.com. The Federal Reserve finds itself caught in the middle of this economic turbulence. The central bank cut its benchmark interest rate by a quarter point to a range of 4%, from 4.25%, which is the first rate cut since December. Fed Chair Jerome Powell characterized this as, quote, a risk management cut, acknowledging that central bankers can't wait around forever for the effects of Trump's policies to become crystal clear. In his words, quote, we have to live life looking through the windshield rather than the rearview mirror, end quote. Yeah, Jerome Powell, you're a massive piece of shit. And why you haven't been replaced yet is indicative of the fact that maybe there's not as much horsepower in this whole Drain the Swamp campaign as one may have hoped. Powell made clear that growing risks to the labor market were driving the Fed's decision, even though Trump's tariffs pose inflation risks. However, those inflation forecasts have yet to materialize. So a lot of that risk that has been discussed, which is allegedly the reason why interest rates have been kept so high in the first place, haven't materialized. Powell, characterized the current job market as one of, quote, low hiring and low firing, aka stagnation, warning that, quote, the concern is that if you start to see layoffs, there won't be a lot of hiring going on, end quote. While inflation on goods exposed to tariffs has begun climbing in recent months, Powell said the impact hasn't had a, quote, very large effect at this point, end quote, though the full extent remains to be seen. Also, of note, remember that the Biden-era jobs reports have now all essentially been proven to be nothing but hot air. We'll perhaps save opinion and analysis for another time. Bear Independent bonus intel. You guys send this to intel@bearindependent.com. That's the email address, and if it's beneficial to the Bear Nation as a whole, we will include it in the show. Good morning, Bear Nation, and shalom. I'm asking for anonymity on this because in the grand scheme of things, this is pretty friggin' big, at least in my small little world. I work for a law enforcement agency in North Georgia for the past 3 weeks. What's up, North Georgia? I was just out there teaching some of y'all. For the past 3 weeks now, we have been unable to get any returns on fingerprint submissions to the GBI for fingerprint-based background checks. We were told from the fingerprint vendor that the issue was a software change from the state and that no one was made aware of it before it was pushed out. No one knew, and everything suddenly just didn't work. The vendor told me that they were working on a fix and should have one soon. That was the beginning phase of all this. I asked again for an update middle to late last week and was told that a fix had been created, and when they pushed the fix out to some machines, it broke them. I was told that now they're trying to come up with a fix for the fix, plus dealing with the original issue. In the beginning, we were okay with the story. Now it has a particular odor to it. With all the information given and the evidence presented, it feels more like a hack. Exactly like a hack. A criminal mind would think the state would not just unilaterally change. A critical mind would think that the state would not just unilaterally change the software to the entire fingerprint system, not tell anyone about it, push it out, and totally wreck fingerprint-based background checks. Wow, I need more coffee. I do. I've had precisely 0 so far today. I apologize for the lack of dexterity in my vocal cords this morning. A critical mind would think the state would not just unilaterally change the software to the entire fingerprint system, not tell anyone about it, push it out, and totally wreck fingerprint-based background checks. It just doesn't compute. Jails and sheriff's offices are affected all over the state. Hiring new employees is involved. Concealed permits are involved. If it is what it is presented as, at the very least, it's gross incompetence. If it is what a growing number of my colleagues think, it's not good for the system. Hack or not, this is proof that the infrastructure is fragile. We just don't know how fragile until we're tasting it. Yeah. I like dumb systems. Oh, but they take longer. Yeah, the digital world. See, that's one of the concerns I have with the over digitization of infrastructure. On occasion, me and some of the boys, we do OP4 over here at Fort Chaffee, Land Warfare Phase for Naval Special Warfare, and others. And it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. If you bring anything that emanates, for example, this little Yaesu FT65R right here, or your smartwatch, or your cell phone is not turned off and put up inside of your truck, anything that issues a signal is targetable. Picture says 1,000 words. These little red dots right here. Barry, that's a sick gun. What is that? Oh, keep it in your pants, homie. Who cares? It's a 5.56 carbine. All right. These little red dots. There is technology that can be deployed from an aerial platform, including a drone, that will knock your electronics offline, including your little red dots. Yeah. So what is it? The SIG M157 optic that costs, what, 7,000 taxpayer dollars per? Yeah. Too smart. Too smart. Iron sights, man. Iron sights. Backup iron sights. Or low power variable optics. The more we complicate things with signals and technologies, the more threat vectors we create. Whether that's from a defense standpoint or an infrastructure standpoint or a personal preparedness standpoint. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a red dot. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a radio. But you should understand the inherent risks with them. And while I think that everybody should have a radio and know how to use it, because your most likely threat is environmental. The sky gets angry, hurricanes, tornadoes, winter storms, flooding, fires, depending on where you live. And without commo, we have no logistics. When it's time to do the militant things, Everybody STFU on the radio. Yeah, probably don't even need to have them turned on. Next, Intel staff note. Read inconsistencies. Track in. Because the first word in this is incontinences, which I think is when you shit yourself. Inconsistencies involving the assassination. I'm just going to start with the first, being, as you know, medical. Charlie was hit in the carotid artery. Blood would have sprayed with every beat of his heart all over. Instead of, you see a slow leak, then pour like... Now, hold on. I've seen a lot of this analysis here with Charlie hitting the neck. If he was hitting the carotid artery or the jugular vein, that it would have been spurting instead of leaking. That's not necessarily true. And if y'all would come to class or watch the free trauma medicine playlist at refugemedical.com, it's free. I recorded 4 hours of content for you that's free, hosted at refugemedical.com under the training tab. Or watch the webinar that's on Refuge Medical. You would know there is a difference between a partially and a fully severed artery or vein. You would also know that veins dump with a consistent pressure and arteries go with the heartbeat. Okay? Arteries are the out pipes, veins are the in pipes. Capillaries are the little pipes that exchange from arteries to veins. Think of a garden hose. Okay, I want you to think of a garden hose. You're holding a garden hose, and the water's turned on, and it's just running out the end of the hose. Okay? It's just a column of water running out the end of the hose. That's a completely severed artery. Now, put your thumb over the end of the hose. What happens? It sprays. That's a partially severed artery. They're not the same. Well, how do you know, Barrett? Because we have footage of live flesh training in the slides, in the curriculum at Refuge Medical. And I've taught that curriculum hundreds of times, including the live flesh portion. So, not necessarily. And there is a lot of internet trauma experts all over the place now. And I will note, again, I was on a call with DARPA yesterday. There were 184 people on that call. OSINT treasure trove. But I digress. I didn't see one of our competitors in the space. And the reason for that, I was told, now maybe they were just stroking my ego, was they were told we were the best in the industry. Okay. So there's a difference between a partially and a fully severed artery. Charlie was hit in the carotid artery, or he was hit near the carotid artery, and or the jugular vein. Blood would have sprayed with every beat of his heart all over. Not necessarily. Instead, you see it slow leak, then start to pour out like pouring water on the ground. It's called a blood dump. These are considerably large blood vessels in the sides of the neck. Also, whatever. America is at a turning point. We are being polarized and shoved into civil war while our president deploys the military in advance under the cover of law and order. I realize this sounds like conspiracy theory stuff, but let's remove emotions from all of it and look at the facts. Having worked construction, I know that you cannot gain access to rooftops without keys of some type. Depends. I've been on plenty of roofs where roof access was not locked. Also, I carry something in my pocket, every pocket of every pants. These are lockpicks. They come from covertinstruments.com. And most of these rooftop locks and commercial locks are absolute trash. Here's another set of lockpicks. Covert Instruments. These are my favorites right here. They work great. They have allowed me access to all kinds of places that were behind a lock. Okay? Bear, why do you carry lockpicks? www.calebhouse.org. Now, okay. I've had to gain access to many rooftops many times, and I know it requires permission from the property and then a maintenance person or an access key being given. A grieving widow, my wife is a widow, she still can't talk about the incident, his death, without being completely choked up and incoherent. Yet this widow is very composed, and yet she makes a slip in her video about coming home post Charlie's death and their children running into their arms. The video of him being shot looks like a Hollywood performance. Having served overseas, I've seen firsthand someone shot and they don't bounce up, they simply go limp. In short, this is meant to cause further divide in this country, fuming the race, right versus left ideology, etc. Now, I agree with you that the purpose of this, there's many purposes here, but one of which is to further divide the country. Left versus white, left versus right, white versus black, etc., etc. What very few people have talked about, although to be honest, I've been inundated with Charlie Kirk reporting and I've not watched most of it. But I said this last Thursday on Refuge. We know for a fact, based upon the available footage, that Charlie, that round that hit his neck, went up through his neck into the brainstem because he had what's called decorticate posturing immediately. His elbows locked at a 90-degree angle. His hands were in at a 45-degree angle. He made his knife hands and he fell locked up sideways like this. And that decorticate posturing is indicative, strong indicator that there is central nervous system involvement. Well, brainstem is right back here. Right back here. So even if he didn't bleed out, he was a vegetable. Is he dead? Is he still alive? What difference does it make? If he wants to act as if he's dead, great. Good for him. If he doesn't, we'll never know. Here's the thing. We'll never know. I think the official story with the patsy, Tyler Robinson, is a bunch of make-believe drivel. I definitely think there's more going on there. However, gaining rooftop access, easy. I've done it many, many times. The door was locked. Great. Pick the lock. Done it many, many times. The bleeding from the neck. Again, I've watched just that close-up video of Charlie bleeding from his neck probably 50 times. You got to know the difference between a partially and a fully severed artery. It's entirely possible and likely that was a fully severed artery. And then that begs the question, well, what could you do for that? Wound packing, hemostatics, ASAP. However, you also have an airway right here in the center of your neck. And so if the airway was damaged and that blood dump is going into his airway and into his lungs, we also have major problems there. Long and short, survivability of being hit like that is essentially zero. Next, I live in Portland, Oregon, in one of the most crime and drug-ridden neighborhoods. Yesterday, a man overdosed in my neighbor's yard. 3 people called 911, and it took them over an hour to respond. My wife went back to her work to get Narcan, and the street response showed up literally while I was gloving up from my bare fac, and they were able to get him up and moving. I told our neighbors that are relatively new to the neighborhood, we're on our own out here. It took police 2 days, yes, days, to respond to a shooting that damaged property across the street from us. Thank you for everything you all do. God bless you all. So, a couple of thoughts here. Number one, yes, glove up. Number two, when you administer Narcan to somebody who's on the ground, which you should have at your home, and if you can't get it, call the store, refugemedical.com, although there's probably more local resources that can provide it to you. But if you can't get it, just reach out to us. We'll get it for you. When you administer Narcan, you want to be behind the person's head, right? So if you imagine you're down on your knees, their head is in between your knees and their feet are pointed away from you. You come over the top and administer Narcan intranasal, okay? Because they're likely to pop up, and when they pop up away from you, and they're likely to vomit. And when they vomit away from you. And this isn't just a ew, gross thing. That vomit is a biohazard. That vomit contains the thing that caused them to overdose in the first place, and you don't want to get it on you. So when they pop up, you want them to pop up and puke away from you, not onto you. As for the cops being 2 days on a follow-up, I don't know what Oregon law is, but I know what the law of the Most High is. Have tools in your toolkit for addressing problems as they may arise. I need to paint this rifle. I just got done building and zeroing this rifle, and too shiny, too black, must paint. By the way, I much prefer the PEC 15 to the Maul. Yeah, I'm probably gonna pull that Maul and put a PEC on there. Anyway, that's the show for today. If you want your intel involved, intel@bearindependent.com. Reach out to us. Sorry we went a little long, and if you want, if you would like me to do a long form video on debrief from this Zoom call that I was on yesterday, and here's a picture of the program. DARPA program solicitation, MASH, medics autonomously stopping hemorrhage. Okay. If you want me to talk about that to the extent that I can, let me know in the comments, and I'll consider making a long form video there. Y'all have a blessed day, everybody. RefugeMedical.com. Made in America, guaranteed forever. All kinds of kits. This is the SOB kit. Small at the back. Got a soft tee on there. You put it on your war belt. I run one of these on my carrier, upside down, right here. Makes a great little armrest. I can get to my tourniquet with either hand, and if I need it, I can pull this open, grab the right handle, pull, and now I'm holding my blowout kit in my hand. Comes in all the cool guy colors, and our pouches, all of our sewn goods are guaranteed forever. So if you wreck them, we'll replace them at no cost to you. And if you use the contents to save a life, we'll replace them at no cost to you. And also, this is a boo-boo kit. You can also get just the bags. There are bag-only options on the website. Proudly made in the United States of America, right there. It's got a moons out, goons out patch on it. But this has a SWAT tee, stretch wrap and tuck. Tourniquet on the outside, right there. Great for kiddos. And inside of here is all your boo-boo stuff. Your gauze, your tape, your Band-Aids, OTC meds, wipes, Susie fell off her bicycle stuff. But this is a cool bag for your rucksack. It's got loops here. You can lash or carabiner this onto whatever. Fits in a glove box, fits in the center console of a vehicle. Good little organizational pack for your or pouch for your rucksack as well. So check all that out, refugemedical.com. If you got questions, call the store, shoot us an email, hit the live chat. That's populated by real people, not AI robots. I gotta go. Sorry for the long show today. Later.